Welcome to HardScript.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I found out something was over the night. She looked past me and checked her phone while saying no. It happened in our kitchen, under the white lights she insisted on because they looked better on camera. I had come back late from my office, jacket still on, laptop bag by the door. She was barefoot, leaning against the counter, phone glowing in her hand. Notifications kept sliding down the screen. Messages, hearts, mentions. I stepped closer. Not fast, not dramatic, just present. She didn't look up. She said she was tired. Said tomorrow was a big day. Said mornings mattered now. The phone buzzed again. She smiled at the screen before locking it. Then she looked at me like I was blocking the light. A few seconds passed. Then she said it, flat and casual, like commenting on the weather. She said I wasn't a leader anymore. Not the kind of man she could follow. She said she needed energy, direction, someone who understood momentum. No anger in her voice. No apology either. I nodded once. Took off my jacket. Hung it on the chair. I poured a glass of water. She went back to her phone. Her name is Lauren Hale. National morning show. Recently promoted. Face on billboards now. Invitations, panels, interviews. Her producer calls after midnight. Her editor texts during dinner. Her Instagram stories never sleep. Our apartment had turned into a set. I paid for the lighting. I built the systems behind it. I stayed out of frame. I went to bed alone that night. Not as a statement. Just because there was no space left. Over the next few days, the pattern stayed clean. Every refusal came with a screen. Every pause came with a vibration. She talked about a blogger named Evan like he was a tool. Media synergy. Reach. Collaboration. His face showed up on her phone more than mine did in the mirror. I stopped asking questions. I stopped timing my returns to match hers. I stopped filling the silence. On Thursday morning, she announced a new segment. Prime placement. Bigger audience. She said it while checking her reflection in the microwave door. She didn't notice when I slid my phone into airplane mode. That night, she went out for drinks with her team. She didn't ask if I was coming. I didn't ask where she was going. At 11:47, she texted that she'd be late. No explanation. Just a period at the end. I turned off the living room lights one by one. I left the kitchen exactly as it was. Her phone charger stayed plugged in. She came home to a dark apartment in a quiet hallway. I was still there, just not where she could see me. By Monday, the apartment had adjusted to her schedule, not mine. Lights came on automatically when she entered. The espresso machine warmed itself at 6. Her makeup case stayed open on the bathroom counter like a command post. I moved around it without touching anything. Not careful, just precise. She didn't notice at first. I left before she woke up. Came back after she slept. Meals stopped overlapping. The fridge stayed full. The table stayed unused. Her phone stayed face down only when she was filming. The rest of the time it lived in her palm. One morning, she talked to me while looking at her reflection, adjusting an earpiece. She said the network loved her last segment. Said her engagement numbers were up. Said Evan had reposted her clip and it was huge. She waited for a reaction that never came. The mirror kept my silence for me. That night, she fell asleep scrolling. The screen dimmed against her cheek. I watched it long enough to see his name again. Evan Brooks. Verified. Blue check. He lived where the comments were loud and the praise came fast. He was always framed well. Always smiling. Always just out of reach. I rolled onto my side and faced the wall. The next evening, she canceled dinner without calling it a cancellation. She said things were moving fast at work. Said she had to be available. She said this while typing. I cleared my plate and rinsed it. The sound echoed longer than it should have. She posted a story an hour later. Dim bar lighting. A laugh caught mid-frame. His shoulder visible at the edge like an accident that wasn't one. I muted her account. On Wednesday, I shifted my calendar. Meetings moved. Calls rerouted. Access permissions updated quietly. The systems I maintained didn't require announcements. They just worked, or they didn't. She came home energized that night. Too energized. Talking fast. Saying my name like she was testing whether it still fit. She noticed the living room felt different. Asked if I'd changed something. I said nothing. She filled the gap with her phone. Later, she said I was distant. Said it like an observation, not a concern. Said maybe success required sacrifice. Said intimacy was a distraction when momentum mattered. I didn't argue. I packed a small bag after she fell asleep. Not clothes, devices, keys, access cards, the things that let a system recognize you. At 3 in the morning, her phone lit up again. I watched it from the doorway. Another notification. Another pull. I stepped out and closed the door softly behind me. The apartment didn't react. Neither did she. I didn't go far. I took a short-term place across town, paid monthly, no questions. White walls. One window. Enough signal to work. Enough silence to hear things stop. The first thing I turned off wasn't physical. I removed myself from her routines. The smart systems in the apartment had been my work. Lighting schedules, cloud backups, network prioritization so her uploads never lagged. I didn't break anything. I simply returned everything to default. No optimization. No anticipation. By Wednesday afternoon, she noticed. She texted asking why her live upload froze midstream. I didn't answer. She called twice. I let it ring. That evening, she posted anyway, smiling, framing the glitch as a joke. The comments filled in the gaps for her. Praise. Fire emojis. Evan's name appeared again, pinned near the top. He commented something supportive. She liked it immediately. I watched from a distance that wasn't emotional, just informational. Thursday morning, her assistant called me by mistake. Said Lauren's calendar was wiped. Asked if I'd changed permissions. I said nothing and hung up. The apartment sent another signal. The espresso machine didn't preheat. The lights stayed cold. The automation she'd stopped noticing now refused to guess. That night, she came home early. Earlier than she had in weeks. I wasn't there. She walked through the rooms. Turned lights on manually. Opened drawers. Checked the bathroom. Her phone stayed in her hand, but she wasn't looking at it. She left a voicemail. Short. Controlled. She said we needed to talk. Said disappearing wasn't mature. Said she didn't understand what game I was playing. I deleted it without listening again. Friday came with momentum. Her face was everywhere. Morning show promo. Digital billboards. She posted a photo with Evan tagged openly now. No edge cut off. No accident. The caption talked about collaboration. Energy. Growth. I closed the app. That afternoon, I redirected one final system. Not hers. Mine. Financial structures. Shared access ended. Automatic transfers stopped. Subscriptions rolled off quietly. The support that never announced itself stopped showing up. Nothing collapsed immediately. That was the point. Saturday night, she called again. This time her voice wasn't flat. She said the apartment felt wrong. Said things weren't syncing. Said she felt off. I watched the call light fade without touching it. At midnight, a notification hit my secondary device. Building management. Lauren had requested emergency support for network issues. They couldn't help. I stood by the window and looked at the city lights, steady and indifferent. Absence doesn't argue. It waits until the noise realizes it has no one left to push against. The first public crack showed up on Sunday. She went live earlier than usual. Hair perfect. Smile rehearsed. The apartment behind her looked unchanged on camera, but I could see what the lens didn't catch. The delay before the feed stabilized. The slight hitch when she switched angles. The way she paused, waiting for a response that came half a second late. She adjusted. She always did. The comments kept flowing, but the rhythm was off. Engagement dipped, then spiked, then dipped again. Evan jumped into the chat, amplifying, tagging, trying to carry the momentum. She leaned into it, laughing a little louder than necessary. I watched for 3 minutes, then closed the window. An hour later, she posted a story about unexpected tech gremlins. A joke. A wink. The audience loved it. They always did when things stayed abstract. Behind the scenes, the tone shifted. Her assistant texted twice. Then her producer. Then someone from the network's digital team. The messages stacked up on my muted device, unread. She didn't know they still routed through me. That afternoon, she showed up at my office. Security called first. Asked if I was expecting someone. I said no. She walked in like she still belonged there. Sunglasses on. Phone already recording something she'd probably delete later. She stopped when she saw my desk was empty. No photos. No spare charger. No trace. She lowered the phone. She said my name once. Not loud. Testing the acoustics. I didn't answer. She said this wasn't funny. Said disappearing like this made her look bad. Said people were starting to ask questions. I stayed seated. Finished signing a document. Closed the folder. She noticed then. The lack of reaction. The way the room didn't bend around her. She said Evan thought I was insecure. Said he'd warned her about men like me. Men who couldn't handle a woman with momentum. I stood up and walked past her, not brushing her shoulder, not rushing, just moving through the space she'd assumed was hers. She followed me to the door, said I was sabotaging her, said I was pulling support because my ego couldn't keep up. I stepped into the hallway. The door closed on its own. That evening, she posted again. A photo with Evan, closer this time. Caption about alignment. About choosing people who matched her pace. The comments split. Some praise. Some questions. A few asking where I was. She didn't answer those. At midnight, she tried calling from a private number. I let it ring. Outside my window, the city moved without noticing either of us. Systems don't miss what they outgrow. They just stop compensating. By Tuesday, the questions stopped being subtle. Her engagement stayed high, but the infrastructure underneath it kept slipping. Uploads lagged. Scheduled posts published late. A sponsored clip went out without proper tags and had to be pulled. Small things. The kind audiences forgive once, not twice. She adjusted publicly and unraveled privately. I knew because the calls changed tone. Fewer accusations. More pauses. Her messages shortened. The confidence drained out between the lines. She stopped mentioning Evan by name. Instead, she started talking about stress, about pressure, about how success came with hidden costs. She framed it like content. Vulnerability performed cleanly for the camera. Behind that, she kept trying to reach me. She left a note at the apartment. Building management forwarded a photo of it automatically. My name written carefully. No anger, just an outline of concern. She said we were stronger than this. Said she didn't recognize me anymore. She didn't recognize the silence because it wasn't speaking to her. That night, she went live from a different location. A studio downtown. Neutral background. Controlled lighting. Evan appeared briefly, then stepped out of frame. She smiled tighter than usual. The comments flooded in. Questions about chemistry. About change. About where I was. She skipped those. The stream ended early. An hour later, her producer called my number directly. Said Lauren had missed a planning meeting. Said she wasn't responding. Said something felt off. I listened without replying. Wednesday morning, Evan posted alone. A long caption about growth and authenticity. He tagged Lauren, but she didn't repost it. She stayed quiet longer than her audience was used to. That afternoon, she showed up at my temporary place. I didn't open the door. She stood outside long enough for the hallway camera to log her presence. She knocked once. Not loud. Then again, harder. She said my name through the door. No anger this time. Just confusion. I stayed still. She leaned her forehead against the wood. Stayed there longer than expected. Then she left. That evening, she unfollowed me. I noticed because nothing pinged. The next day, her account lost the blue check for 6 hours during a verification review triggered by repeated tech errors. It came back, but the pause was noticed. Control requires an object. When the object removes itself, the force has nowhere to land. I sat at my desk and closed another access loop. Quietly. Permanently. The absence started showing up where applause couldn't cover it. Her numbers still looked strong on the surface, but the internal metrics told a different story. Retention dipped. Drop-off came earlier. Comments shifted from praise to speculation. Audiences feel instability before they can name it. She felt it too. She stopped posting in the mornings. Her stories came late, then disappeared altogether for a day. When she came back, she leaned harder into polish. Sharper edits. Brighter lighting. The kind of control you reach for when something underneath won't hold still. Evan filled the gaps publicly. He tagged her more often. Overexplained. Posted behind-the-scenes shots that felt staged. He smiled into the camera like he was auditioning for permanence. She didn't match his energy. I watched quietly as the dynamic shifted. Attention stayed loud, but direction scattered. Too many hands on the wheel now. No one setting the route. Midweek, a sponsor pulled a segment. No announcement. Just a reschedule that never came back. She addressed it with humor on a live stream, brushed it off as timing. The comments weren't convinced. That night, she tried something new. She posted a black and white photo. No makeup, no caption, just a single word about clarity. The response spiked. Sympathy. Support. People telling her she deserved peace. Evan didn't comment. She noticed. An hour later, she sent me a message. Not asking where I was. Not accusing. Just a photo of the apartment. Lights on manually. The couch empty. The caption read that things felt hollow. I didn't open it. The next day, she arrived at the office again, this time without cameras. She waited in the lobby until security asked her to leave. She left quietly. Her feed stayed active, but her voice changed. Slower, less certain. She talked about transitions now, about letting go of what no longer served her. The language of someone trying to convince herself. Evan posted a solo video that afternoon. Motivational. Aggressive optimism. He didn't mention her once. That was the turn. She went silent for 48 hours. No stories. No posts. No comments. Her audience filled the space with concern and theories. Management released a brief note about rest. I closed another account and watched the final thread disconnect. When she came back online, it was alone. Neutral background. No tags. No names. She talked about growth without direction, about strength without anchor. Control without an object doesn't become freedom. It becomes noise, echoing back unanswered. I shut the screen and let it keep echoing. The collapse didn't announce itself. It showed up in small delays, missed cues, conversations that ended without resolution. The kind of erosion that doesn't trend until it's already done its work. Her return stream underperformed. Not visibly. Not in a way she could joke away. It just failed to hold. People came, listened, left. The comments stayed polite. That was worse. Polite means disengaged. She adjusted again. New format. New tone. She leaned into authority this time. Firmer posture. Sharper delivery. Less warmth. She spoke about discipline, about standards, about cutting distractions to protect momentum. The audience didn't push back. They drifted. Sponsors followed behavior, not speeches. One by one, meetings turned into reschedules, then into emails handled by assistants instead of principals. She still worked constantly, but the gravity had shifted. She was reacting now. Evan stayed visible. Too visible. He posted content that mirrored hers within hours. Similar language. Similar themes. He framed himself as aligned, but alignment without invitation looks like intrusion. She stopped reposting him entirely. I knew because I checked once, then stopped checking. Late Thursday night, she broke pattern. She sent a long message. Not angry. Not apologetic. Descriptive. She wrote about nights that felt empty even when the apartment was full of light. About waking up with her phone already in her hand. About realizing she'd been speaking to audiences instead of people. She wrote that she didn't know when she'd crossed that line. I didn't read it twice. Friday morning, her network announced a format review. Temporary. Strategic. The kind of language that buys time while decisions are made elsewhere. She didn't post that day. Evan did. A video about loyalty. About standing by people during transitions. He named no one. The comments weren't kind. That evening, she went live unexpectedly. No makeup. No script. Just her, centered but unguarded. She talked about silence. About how noise can feel like control until it suddenly doesn't. Halfway through, she stopped. The stream cut without explanation. It didn't come back. I closed my laptop and packed the last remaining access card into a drawer I wouldn't open again. Absence isn't dramatic. It doesn't punish. It just refuses to stabilize what no longer respects it. And without stabilization, even the loudest systems begin to fail quietly. The silence after her last stream didn't fade. It thickened. Her accounts stayed active but empty. Scheduled posts paused. Old clips resurfaced through algorithms, but without her voice attached, they felt like reruns. Familiar, but disconnected. People noticed. Articles started framing it as a reset. Strategic silence. Creative recalibration. Media loves clean narratives. They don't ask who turned off the power. Behind that, the structure kept loosening. Her team rotated. One assistant reassigned. Then another. Calls that once went straight to her started landing with managers instead. Decision paths lengthened. Approval slowed. Momentum bled out through friction. Evan tried once more. He posted a photo of the two of them from weeks earlier. Caption about loyalty during storms. He tagged her. She didn't respond. The post stayed up for 12 hours before he deleted it. I saw none of it in real time. My days had simplified. Work ran clean. Sleep came without interruption. The quiet no longer felt reactive. It felt settled. Late Sunday evening, she sent one last message. No photos. No framing. Just words. She wrote that the apartment felt wrong without resistance. That she'd thought intimacy was something she could schedule, pause, control. That she hadn't understood what presence actually stabilized until it was gone. She didn't ask me to come back. She asked if I had ever felt invisible. I left it unread. Monday morning, the network released a brief update. Lauren Hale was stepping back from on-air duties indefinitely. No scandal. No explanation. Just language about focus and well-being. The audience responded with concern and support. They always do. Attention is generous when it doesn't have to stay. Evan pivoted within hours. New collaboration announced. New face. Same captions. By Wednesday, her name stopped trending. I closed the last shared folder that afternoon. The final trace of overlap disappeared without resistance. Systems prefer clarity. That night, I walked past our old building on my way home. Lights were on in the apartment. Manual. Uneven. No rhythm. I didn't slow down. Absence had finished its work. Not by force. By refusing to stand in place where respect had been replaced with performance. Control only feels powerful when something stays. When it leaves, what remains isn't freedom. It's an empty room waiting for applause that never comes. The offer came quietly. No press. No announcement. Just an email routed through a neutral address, stripped of urgency. A senior role on a private project. Long-term. Discreet. The kind of work that doesn't require a face. I accepted without negotiating. The transition took a week. My name disappeared from shared systems. New credentials replaced old ones. The city adjusted without comment. It always does. Her silence broke once more, indirectly. An interview surfaced. Not live. Pre-recorded. She spoke about redefining success, about stepping away from narratives that no longer fit. She avoided specifics. She always had. The host framed it as growth. She didn't mention me. The comments filled in the space she left. Some defended her. Some speculated. Most moved on to the next thing. Attention never waits. Evan appeared briefly in the background of a different clip days later. Different channel. Different energy. He smiled less. He talked more. Alignment has an expiration date. I moved offices. Higher floor. Fewer windows. The work stayed clean. The silence stayed intact. No notifications after hours. No blurred edges between presence and performance. One evening, months later, I saw her name in passing. A headline about a new direction. Podcast format. Smaller audience. Loyal, but contained. She sounded calmer. Slower. The apartment sold shortly after. The listing photos showed neutral furniture. No trace of the systems that once anticipated every move. I didn't feel anything about it. Absence had already closed that account. The last message came through an old channel I'd forgotten to delete. A short line. No framing. No explanation. She wrote that she finally understood what had gone missing. That silence had answered questions she'd never asked directly. She didn't ask for a response. I archived it. The work took me out of the city soon after. Different skyline. Same quiet. The kind that doesn't need defending. Control only works when something agrees to be held. I stopped agreeing. The night before I left, I walked once more through streets that had learned my routine. Cafes. Corners. Reflections in glass. Nothing followed. Presence is a choice. So is withdrawal. One builds a stage. The other turns off the lights and leaves the room empty enough for the truth to echo. I didn't look back. There was nothing left that needed an audience. The new city didn't know my name. That was the point. The building badge worked the first time. The desk was bare. The systems responded cleanly. No lag. No personalization. Just function. I set my phone face down and left it there all day. Work stayed contained. Meetings ended on time. No one asked about my past. No one needed it. Weeks passed without interruption. One evening, I checked an old account I rarely used. Her podcast had launched. Smaller studio. No live audience. The comments were measured. Thoughtful. Limited. She spoke slower now. Paused before finishing sentences. She talked about learning to sit with quiet instead of filling it. I didn't finish the episode. The next morning, a mutual contact forwarded a short clip. She mentioned a relationship without naming it. Said she'd confused attention with closeness. Said she'd thought control meant safety. I closed the file and deleted the message thread. The apartment here stayed simple. Manual lights. No automation. Nothing anticipating me. I liked it that way. On a Friday night, I walked home through streets that didn't associate me with anyone else. No history. No roles assigned. Just movement. At a crosswalk, I saw her face on a screen across the street. An old ad running out its contract. Brighter, younger, framed for an audience that had already moved on. The light changed. I crossed without stopping. Later, I received a final notification. A system update confirming the permanent removal of my access from her accounts. It arrived automatically. No emotion attached. I archived it. There was nothing left to manage. Months later, I heard she'd moved. Smaller place. Different pace. The kind of adjustment that doesn't trend. Evan's name surfaced briefly in a separate context. New circle. New alignment. Same energy. I didn't follow it. One night, I sat at my desk after everyone had gone home. The building hummed evenly. No voices. No screens competing for attention. I turned off the overhead light and let the room settle. Absence doesn't announce victory. It just leaves. And when it does, whatever depended on it has to stand on its own. Some things can't. I locked up, stepped into the quiet street, and kept walking without checking who was watching. No one was. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.